What a waste of 2 lives going through life apathetic about their marriage and their family. So, is there anything we can do about it? Well, there's some tough steps in this marriage makeover we're going to talk about. It's possible to have a marriage makeover, but I think mostly you got to do it God's way. 4 things that cause a marriage to go bad. The first thing that makes it sink is unrealistic expectations. Did you have a lot of expectations about?
Many. And I still do.
Oh, okay.
And they're unrealistic. You get rid of them.
There's no other area of life where we probably have higher expectations and more unrealistic expectations. I'm getting married. Oh, I'm so excited. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be perfect. He's just right for me. She's just what I wanted. And we're setting ourselves up with these false expectations. Who does that to us? Hollywood, number 1. You watch the films, the big screen, your TV screen. It's all about love and romance. And hey, you know I've said before, I love those kind of stories. But there's a reality behind them. And the ones who star in those movies, how are their marriages doing? I mean, pretty bad. So many things set us up, and that's one of them. Hollywood, fancy films, you know, where the knight in shining armor comes running in, riding on a horse.
Shrek. I think of that movie. All your movies.
Okay, Shrek. I don't think I've seen it. And he takes the woman and he rides off into the sunset. And then, so those are expectations that aren't realistic. And then there's the engagement, the courting, all of that period. That's unrealistic. We act in ways when we're dating that we've never acted before. We say things like we talked about last week. Honey, you go first. Oh, you got a cold? Well, let's go down to the hospital and have it. You know, we talk differently in those periods of time where we're trying to make the connection with this beautiful woman that's before us. And then there's the wedding preparations. Again, more unrealistic expectations. Have any of you read Bride magazine?
Sure.
Bride. Well, if you're about to get married, it's a good magazine. But you know what? They ought to have over the front of that magazine science fiction. Because you look at that magazine, everything is perfect. Every woman is, I know she's airbrushed, you know, and she just looks fantastic. But there's no reality there. It's not the real thing. And then there's, where'd my water go? On the floor? And then there's the big bait and switch thing. I love this part.
It's the new one.
You don't see your wife or your fiance for about 2 days just before the wedding. And you know what they do? They take her away. And they do this personal makeover. She goes up to Napa, they go into the spa, they have all this done, the hair's done, everything's done. And when she walks down the aisle, everybody knows and is thinking, she will never look like this again. And to help her out a little bit, isn't this true? To help her out, they dress the bridesmaids in the dorkiest dresses you've ever seen. I mean, I've performed a lot of weddings and they walk up and really some of them look like they were just stitched the night before. And not with a professional machine. Those dresses, how many of you have ever been in a wedding as a bridesmaid? Steve, not you. No. Let me ask you this question, sir. Have you ever worn the bridesmaid dress again?
No.
No. I mean, I don't know what you do with it. You make a costume for your child for Halloween. But I'll tell you what, it's unrealistic. And so let's fast forward 6 months. And here they are. They're sitting in the breakfast nook. And he's got a scruffy beard. She's in curlers. He's got noxious gases coming from him. And now we settle in with reality. What's happened? Well, if you're married, in conclusion of this first point, I want you to write down what was an unrealistic expectation you had about your mate before you got married. What unrealistic expectation did you have? There's a place to write it down at the bottom. We want to have fun with this. And
At the top.
what unrealistic expectation did you have? What causes your marriage to sink? Write it down. Truth is, every marriage is composed of, we said this last week, two imperfect people. This is why I don't understand why marriages get into such trouble. You're not perfect, right, lady? And he's not perfect. So you got two imperfect people. Why are you looking for the perfect marriage? It's not going to happen. You just need to work at it. So what do we need to do? We need to grow up. We need to become realistic about all these things in order that we can have a marriage that can make progress and not lead to hostilities. You're on.
I poured it out. I didn't drink it. The second one is unaccepted differences. And so, you know, one thing with what we're sharing today, just to remind you again that this just doesn't have to apply to your marriage, even if you're not married. This applies to friendships, families also, and this is a big one, is accepting the fact that we are all different. And at first, isn't it amazing how, you know, we really accept that? There's that, you know, period when we first started dating. I don't care, they're totally different than me, but I just love them. And then something happens, and later in the relationship, that starts to change, and it starts to bother you. And not only does it bother you, sometimes you may get to a place where you just resent them for the fact that they're this way. But this is, I believe it's truly part of God's design, is that He's created us all so different to help us be better people. And how horrible would your marriage be if you married yourself? I think about that often. And you wouldn't even grow personally. So I think it's a great thing, you know, that we're designed that way. When I first met Caitlin, don't worry, I'm not going to pick on you and say how different you are than me, since I was so perfect. But I think about the things that drew me to her was just this free will, this, you know, I worried about everything. Everything had to be perfect. I had to figure out my day. And she was just kind of like, whatever happens today happens. And she was 18, and I was thinking about her life, her career. When are you going to go to school? What are you going to do with your life? I don't know. And I love that about her, but I can remember that later in our marriage there was a point where I would get frustrated by that and get irritated. But you have to have everything figured out. We have to have everything figured out. She's just kind of like, just trust in God. That's not the right answer, but that is the right answer. And I've been able to grow so much because of that. And so I think before marriage, we overestimate how much we have in common, and then that stuff starts to fade away. And for us, I know we wanted to get married right away. I mean, like, I'm not joking you, after maybe a month or so, we're talking about marriage, and we were just falling hard for each other. Luckily, we had some smarter people in our lives who said, take your time, don't rush into this, because we were able to do counseling. And it was funny because we went to a counselor. Hopefully I'm not making this up and it's true, because this is how I remember it. We saw a counselor, and he said,
Here it all.
Brian, you're so perfect. And I said, yeah. No, just kidding. That's not what happened. But during our counseling session, we took one of these tests, and our answers get submitted, and he tells us that you guys are so much alike. You have so much in common. He's like, normally that's not a good thing. You want someone who kind of, you know, is the opposite of you. And boy, was he wrong, or that test was wrong. Because later in life we find out through just so much that we're really different. And so there has to come a place where we accept that, where we realize that this is, you didn't marry yourself, and we have to be okay with that. Otherwise, we're going to walk around with this anger. So some of you like to wake up really early in the morning. You're singing, you're dancing, you get your coffee, read the paper. Others, you don't even believe in God till 11 a.m. You don't want to be awoken. You want your time alone. Some of you guys love to spend money, ladies or guys. Some of you like to just pinch every single penny that you have. And boy, those two actually go really well together.
That leads to a lot of conflict.
Yeah, that does lead to a lot of conflict. But I'm not telling you who's who in us. Some of you, you knew you were marrying Mrs. or Mr. Right, but you didn't know that their first name was always Right. and so we have to learn to accept that person for who they are and learn that this is really part of God's design, that we're going to be able to grow so much by appreciating, by acknowledging our spouse's differences. So, somewhere on your paper, maybe you shouldn't let your spouse, or this could even be a friend that you have issues with. But what's a difference that you might consider an unaccepted difference? What's something that you guys struggle with accepting of this other person? Go ahead and write that down and make sure you cover your papers. And you can maybe talk about it later in the car ride home. Not right now. That might be awkward. I'm not going to ask you what your differences are.
Oh yeah, I tell you.
I will ask you.
Yeah, I think one of the big differences is Dorcas talks probably 100,000 words in one day, and I talk about 10 words in one day. And that's a huge difference. And it's unacceptable.
Me too.
You have to get past that.
I learned to accept it.
Yeah, and that's funny because that's Caitlin and I kind of where if we're put into a group of strangers, she is just great at socializing and bringing up conversation. I'm not, so I like to bring her along with me so she can talk, and I'll just stand there. That's a good place.
Well, that's good because you and I have that same quality.
Yeah.
Standing back, being aloof. People think we're...
It depends on who's looking at it.
My next one is unresolved issues. Oh my goodness. This is so much foolishness in this, but unresolved issues that you just keep going over and over and over and over again. It could be in the finances of your marriage. You're still fighting over the finances of your marriage, and you've been married 20 years. See, this is for everybody. You spend too much. What? Is that a child?
Some people don't learn.
Yeah. Well, it could be, over sex. You're still fighting over that? I hope not. In-laws? Oh, in-laws are a big one. Where are you going for Thanksgiving? Well, we're going. What about Christmas? Well, you went there last time. This is a big issue. I think I shared that with you in Wendy's house this year, because Wendy's sister-in-law, my daughter who lives in the Bay Area, calls her up and says, hey, you left our parents alone on Thanksgiving. And you know what? They asked me, they asked my wife, they asked her daughter, her children. We were all divided on whether Steve's parents came to Thanksgiving or not. It was weird. And it got into a big thing with that family. Finally, they figured out, I think I told you last week, they were invited, but they had another couple that was coming over. They're much older. They're in their 80s. And the other couple didn't show up, so they went to the country club and had lunch alone, and that's why the family thought they didn't have lunch Thanksgiving with anybody. So these issues that keep coming up over and over again, how about kids and the way you raise them? Oh man, that's huge. Especially if you're in a blended family. I've seen more families get into big trouble over that issue. And those unresolved issues will move you from what is harmony to what is hostility.
Yeah, true.
The worst unresolved issue is the ones you bring into your own marriage.
Wow.
You see, we all were brought up by parents